What up, what up, what up? Welcome to Blunt Talk on Unreduced TV. I'm your host, CaliOGP, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that I don't think anybody's even thinking about. So, before we get into that, let's talk about what Blunt Talk is and how it came to be. Blunt Talk is a show that gives you, the viewer, the person watching the video, it gives you skills and resources to live unreduced. What does that mean? It means that we're going to give you some out of the box ideas, right? Everything in the world that you see is an illusion. It's meant to be created so that you perceive and you accept it the way that you have come to accept things. I want to break that cycle for you. I want to change the way you think about things. I don't want you to go through life as a reduced version of yourself. I want you to be everything that you can possibly be. So today on Blunt Talk, I got this half smoked roach or half smoked blunt right here, and I just want to touch base on a topic that I think quite a few people can relate to. I was actually, let me go ahead and light this up real quick and we'll get right into it. How about that? A1 sauce, man. I love to smoke weed, and this show, it came to start just because I couldn't mix the two worlds that I was spending a little bit of time in, right? I wanted to spend time in the mortgage world or the finance world, and rub shoulders with some of those people, but then, you know, when they find out you smoke weed, they perceive you differently. But I didn't lose skills just because I now smoke weed, or I didn't. In fact, if anything, weed's giving me skills, right? So I also couldn't go to the weed smokers and talk to them about mortgages, right? Like I couldn't talk to them about finance or just life. And me, I probably live in I don't know, over 100 different worlds, man. If I really went through and thought about like all the different ideas and rabbit holes that I've gone down in my life, but you know, Blunt Talk, it's an episode, or it's a chance for me to get on your level, wherever you might be, right? Like wherever you might be in the world. I've gone through and tried to empathize with you, so I try to like find things that will make your life a little bit easier and obviously allow you to live unreduced, right? So on today's show, I want to talk about something that's pretty close to my heart, man. When I was a kid, I think I was like maybe like 6 or 7 when I got my first video game console, right? And my first video game console was probably it actually was. It was a PlayStation 1. I got the PlayStation 1, and I'll never forget this PlayStation 1. It was gray. We hooked up to like this really small TV in the corner of our living room, and I could sometimes play it while the Lakers were on. So this was back when Kobe and Shaq are, teamed up, and I just remember I had a little hoop in my basketball in my room, a little basketball hoop in my room, and I would go after the game was over, because I wasn't really into watching basketball, but like you sit there playing your video game, right, the PlayStation 1, and you hear the basketball game on, and you just hear Kobe to Shaq, and I know a lot of people know that play. And that's a play that really stuck in my head and was on TV a lot at the time. So that's when I first got into video games, right? Now, if you're a big sports fan, maybe that's when you got into sports, when you got into whatever you got into. A lot of video game fans are sports fans. There's video games that don't have anything to do with sports. Maybe you don't even play video games. This video is still for you, so please don't turn it off. This is really to bring awareness to kind of a world that's emerging that nobody's really like giving enough respect to, right? The video game world and community. My mom, she was older. I was adopted, and she saw like the Ataris and like the very first video games that ever came out, and so we had conversations about that. But she could never really find any value in video games at all. Now, me, I was 2 generations after her, so I could find value in video games like right away. Like, I mean, just being able to sit there and have a comfortable, safe space as a black man in America, growing up, like that's immeasurable value to me. Like instead of having to go out and like get into trouble in the streets or whatever was going on outside the house, I could come home and just play a game, plug in, and just stimulate my mind that way. I didn't have to again, I didn't have to get in trouble. So that's great, that's fantastic. I think like the biggest controversy in video games at the time was really getting people to put or getting the video game companies to put ratings on their games, right? Like there would be games that kids would play, and they were shooting games or whatever, and like there was bad language in them, foul language, graphic violence. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Blunt Talk. I apologize for the inconvenience. It is 2020, but technology still isn't perfect. But that's okay, because we live unreduced and we figure it out. So I'm back here to finish telling you what I think is a very important message. We were just talking about when I was growing up, the video game companies, they weren't really in any controversy except for the video game ratings, right? And let me go ahead and spark this blunt that I've got for today. I know I've got a whole different shirt on, whole different outfit. I didn't even realize until after I recorded the video. So let me go ahead and get in the zone for this blunt talk for you. I got this glass filter off one of these recent smokes I picked up, and it's been a pretty cool addition. You just roll the joint a little skinny at the end, and you just shove it in there, and it hits pretty smooth. So it's nice. It keeps your hands from having to get too sticky or anything like that. Shit, I've taken this. There's some social sessions with my friends and shit. And, the COVID's going around, and I'm not trying to claim that none of my friends got the COVID, but, you can never be too careful. So just having a glass tip around, shove the end of the blunt in there if it's not too fat. Now, if it's a fat one, you're going to have to come up with something else, them fat fingers. I got some friends that roll some thick blunts. So let's go ahead and get back into, like, this controversy back then. Like I said, it was just over the video game ratings. A lot of parents weren't letting their kids play the games just because they didn't have the video game companies weren't taking responsibility in separating the kids from that kind of content, right? Like if you were playing like Grand Theft Auto way back then, whatever. I don't know if it existed, but that's just an example. But like a game like Grand Theft Auto, we can mostly agree is not for a 5-year-old kid. Unless you want them, going out robbing people and committing crimes. So that was the whole argument back then, and it's almost my whole argument today, man. I know that as an adult, there's some things I've noticed in the video game community that I find sickening, and I'm looking at you, NBA 2K. I'm looking at you, Fortnite. I'm looking at these big name companies, EA Sports. These are huge companies that are just, in my opinion, they're preying on kids again, and that's what they were doing in the first place when you allow kids to go and play a violent game, right? Like everything else in a kid's world is pretty much around like 5, 7, 8. It's supposed to be positive, right? Like that's what the world is trying to tell you, like your kid. They're trying to make them positive. Video games were giving kids an alternative, and so like these kids were just like getting all this rage, and parents were wondering where it was coming from. It was changing their kids because they're playing fighting games, or maybe they're finding guns, and like then they go get a gun in real life and play with that and shoot themselves. There are a lot of cases about that, and parents would blame the video games. So now they wouldn't blame themselves for not putting the gun away. Again, there's a lot of people that are wrong in many different situations. I don't want this video to go too long, but my appeal to the video game communities and the video game companies is separate your games from the side of people right now who are getting paid to play those games. There's streamers, there's all kinds of promoters, and they're just paid to basically play a specific game or a group of games and promote that to their audience. Okay, now what happens is you've got kids and casual adults who are getting matched up with those paid to play people, and that doesn't show that's not a great environment for them. And the video game companies have been dropping the ball because they've actually been capitalizing on this. They've been profiting, right? Like if a kid or a casual adult plays a try hard, is what they call them. They call them tryhards. I know this video is, you might not be a gamer watching this, so I want to make sure I give you like the lingo. But if you are a try hard, and you're a pay to win player, which means you have invested like real money into the video game world, it is my opinion you shouldn't have to play against them, right? If you're a casual adult, but that happens right now, and you would expect, and what you expect happens. The hardcore player destroys the casual player, and then the casual player is kind of, they're kind of left wondering like what they should do to get better. Is there any way they can get better, right? Because now you've got people that play a game all day because they're getting paid to do it, and you're putting them against people that go to work for a living. They go to work. They have a real job. And I know video gaming is a real job now. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't say somebody who does a real job video gaming all day should even be in the same category as somebody who, maybe went out and sold cars all day. And then they get home and they feed their family and take care of their wife and, shit like that. And they finally get around to the game late at night. They're not going to be able to even put that much time into a video game. But right now, this isn't even something that anybody's talking about. And like I said, I try to bring you videos here on Blunt Talk to stimulate your mind and just get you thinking outside the box so you can live unreduced. And the reason I think that this is important is because, like I said, video games have a massive impact in our world. I personally would vouch for them and say that I wouldn't be successful to the level I am today without them, because there's sometimes not a class that you can take. There's sometimes not enough people interested in a subject that you really are. And so video games create like a whole world when done right, when done by the right passionate people. Right, there's all kinds of examples I have, but the basketball game from when I was growing up, that taught me how to play basketball. Right, it taught me the different rules, like don't go out of bounds, don't go back court. It saved my mom money because she couldn't afford to send me to camps. So she paid $60 for this video game, and I learned real life skills. Let's bring that back into video gaming instead of like, just making it a competitive place. Let's remember that video games were, meant to stimulate the mind. I know you can get paid off of it now, but it's not, competitive for some people. Some people don't want to compete. And, that being kids, who don't have the means, and then that being adults who just simply don't want to because they do something else with their time. So, if you want to have a professional environment, video game companies, you gotta sponsor that, and you've got to really put some money into that. Otherwise, you've got to have a fair matchmaking system where those paid hardcore players, man, they just got to match up against each other. There's plenty of them now. I know there's like hundreds of thousands of streamers now. So, these are people that are getting paid to market and advertise. Let them make it a living. If you invest in them, they're actually going to grow your brand too. So don't just ignore the call. This is a call to you, video game companies. And to the consumer, what can you do, right? My best advice is, please don't support games and companies that refuse to listen to the community and what they're hurting at, right? Like if a community complains that they're not able to compete and they just bought a game and it's not fun anymore, right? Like that's been my experience with like a basketball game. Like NBA 2K used to be one of my favorite games. But it's so competitive now that somebody who plays it maybe an hour a day won't have a chance because there's somebody playing it 8 hours a day. You know, and they've learned every exploit, every cheat to the game. And winning matters so much in that environment that if you're a casual player, you can't just go in there and remember Kobe Bryant. That's pretty sad. You want to remember Kobe Bryant, but in NBA 2K this year, he's not even playable, is what they say. You go on the forums, they'll say he's not playable. You have a serious problem when, as a company, you can't play as your favorite players in a virtual world because you're too scared you're going to lose your real earned dollars. Let's go ahead and cancel pay to play. Pay to win. Cancel pay to win, cancel pay to play. And I think we can do that as a community.